crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mamet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, your host. I'm here with my co-host, Captain Ed Mamet. Say hello, Ed.
Hello, WABC listeners and viewers. It's good to be back again with a very special guest.
Thank you. Great to be back again, and look forward to our discussion.
So our guest today, welcome back once again, Tom Sullivan. Tom Sullivan is the Republican candidate for the New York State Assembly, District 23. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be back, and I am the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for this November.
I like that. So, Tom, why don't you tell the audience once again about yourself, background, where you grew up, where you're from, etc.
Sure. So I was originally born in Brooklyn, but we always summered in the Rockaway Peninsula there. And then eventually in the fifth grade, I moved to the Rockaways all year round. As many of your listeners know, the Rockaway community at one time was very much a summer community. And but I've been a resident ever since. And we got deep roots going back to the early 1900s, and now I'm raising a fourth generation there in the Rockaway community.
It's called the Irish Riviera, right?
That's right. Curtis, right? Curtis always refers to it as the Irish Riviera.
Right. The audience should know that I worked with Tom's father when I was in the police department. I was his father's sergeant, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful man. And he comes from a large family. You were numbered, right? Number 1 through 7?
Yeah, I'm number 6. Number 6 or 7, that's correct. My father would be very proud and pretty impressed that I'd be here with one of his former sergeants.
Well, I didn't work with your dad, but I'm good friends with your brother, Mike.
Yeah.
Big Mike Sullivan. But tell us, District 23, what does that cover? What's District 23?
Yeah, so great neighborhoods, great residential neighborhoods, small business owners of Ozone Park, Lindenwood, Howard Beach, Hamilton Beach. And if you start heading south out of Howard Beach, you go into Broad Channel, and then you hit the Rockaway Peninsula. And from west to east, you have Breezy Point, Neponset, Bell Harbor, Arverne by the Sea, Rockaway Beach, Far Rockaway, Bayswater, all the way out to the Nassau County border there.
Tom, what made you want to run?
I've always been civically involved, interested in the local issues, and often the national issues as I got older and had more experience. But I made a promise to myself that before I would get involved in politics, I would seek to gain some experience. And I've done that for the last 30 years. So I've been working in the financial industry for 30 years, account administrator, stock analyst, compliance officer, and now for the last 18 so years, a registered investment advisor. While pursuing that civilian career, I did 30 years in the Army Reserves. Ironically, my office was on the 95th floor of the World Trade Center on September 11th. So I saw the start of the war, and things changed drastically for everybody after September 11th, and the deployments started happening. So in the course of the next 20 years, I was mobilized 4 times and deployed 3 times to places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait. And I retired last year at the rank of colonel. And nice. My last 2 years were assigned to a headquarters, a command headquarters out in Des Moines, Iowa.
Thank you for your service, Tom.
Oh, thank you.
Really do appreciate it.
And you also run an iconic restaurant in Brooklyn.
So like I mentioned, I got 6 brothers, so I want to be careful there, right? So I don't run the day-to-day, but I do I pay the bills, handle...
Who runs the day-to-day?
My brother Ed and brother Mike.
Okay.
And, they make sure the door gets opened and closed and the lights get put on and people get served and everything in between. But for quite a few years now, my dad used to take care of things like the pay the bills, liquor license, food and health license, insurances. So my mom, when my dad took ill and eventually passed, asked me to take over that part of the business. But I drove my father nuts back in 2000 as a young entrepreneur. I asked him many times, I'd like to open another location. And still working, still in the Army. The war hadn't started. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan hadn't started. But I don't know what happened. But one day he said yes, and I opened the second location in Rockville Center, Long Island, Brennan and Carr, and things got very challenging, right? Because I opened in July of 2000. September 11th, 2001 happened. And I started getting the calls to mobilize and deploy. It was a lot to leave with the family, my wife, with 3 young kids at the time. And so we took it 10 years and took a pause, and hopefully someday we could do something as a family.
That'd be great.
So there's only one Brennan and Carr now? Like it was
There's,
before?
yeah, the original's still there at the intersection of Nostrand Avenue and Avenue U. Opened in 1938. My grandmother worked there the second day it opened. And my father, went to school around the corner and would come for lunch break or come after school and bus tables and clean up and help his mom.
Getting back to your campaign.
Yes.
There are many
yes,
issues.
getting involved in politics.
There are many issues that are law enforcement related. So my question is going to be in 2 parts. First of all, tell us about what your ideas would be, and then I want you to know what you would do different from your opponent, or what makes you different than her, and some of the things that she wants to do that are contrary to law enforcement.
Right. So there are several laws that, in my assessment, have put our rank and file law enforcement officers in danger every day. Right. So you have the most popular one is the cash bail laws that have come, and they're now on, I believe, their 3rd amendment. It has not gotten any better, and I would just question, my concern is a law enforcement family. My father served, brother Secret Service agent, another brother New York, New Jersey Port Authority, another brother NYPD, Fire Department, right? We've given to this country, to this state and this city. So to ask a police officer to go out and arrest an individual is a big deal. As most police officers know, it could go wrong at any second. So with the no cash bail laws, how do you feel when you have to arrest the same person 2 or 3 times, or you made the 3rd arrest and the next person that goes out and made the 4th arrest, right? That it didn't work out so well. So we have a very recent and very in-district incident with Officer Jonathan Diller. That was the 23rd Assembly District down in the 101st Precinct. It turned out that number 8, right, he went to make an arrest on a career criminal for serious offenses. And this time it cost a police officer his life. And I would certainly look to change these no cash bail laws. My opponent has had several opportunities with a supermajority of Democrats in both the Assembly and the Senate, the lower and upper house, to amend these laws. And they have not passed muster yet, and they do no justice to our law enforcement officers out there on the street. And because I've been a political candidate, I get to go to the community council meetings at the 102nd, 106th, 101st, 100th precincts, and the police officers have gotten familiar with my face and my platform, and They've expressed to me on several times, we're doing our job as best we can, and the judicial system is failing us, and that's no cash bail. So and then you have another one out there that I don't hear too many people talk about at all, and that's Clean Slate. That's another state level law that would be, in my purview, if elected, to overturn. And my biggest contention with this law is that it states that if you've had a clean record for 3 years, right, we can wipe out your past arrests, wipe out your past convictions. And what I would submit to most people, it doesn't mean you had a clean record for 3 years. It just means you haven't been caught for 3 years. And, that has to be overturned. And a third issue, which certainly affects both the city and the state, is qualified immunity. How would you like to go out and do your job and know that you could be held personally liable for an injury to somebody during an arrest, your pension be in jeopardy, your personal assets be in jeopardy? Are you more likely to go out there and make an arrest, or less likely? Are you more likely to risk your life speeding to an area, to a crime scene, or less likely knowing that if you hurt somebody, you could be held personally accountable? So I want to clarify with that qualified immunity. The law is supposed to protect you if you've used the tools that have been provided to you, your gun, your taser, handcuffs, etc. Supposed to protect you if you've used the tactics that you've been trained in the academies and subsequent training. Supposed to protect you if you follow the policy, right? But who's going to determine that, whether or not you did that, right?
Well, it's called good faith. If your
correct.
actor was in good faith, then you're supposed to receive qualified immunity.
Right, but who's going to judge whether or not you acted in good faith, right? And I wouldn't be so confident as a police officer with my hands in the general public that might not be so favorable, right?
Yeah. Well, it's most disturbing to me is that it's a state law, and then the city council enacted their own. So the cops here in the city have a double problem on a state level and a city level.
Correct. They doubled down on it hard, and this feeds into that anti-law enforcement sentiment, right? I see it out there as a candidate. I have on all my literature my number one issue: no cash bail, clean slate, disqualified immunity, and it's very discouraging that when someone looks at that and drops the card on the ground or says something to that effect, right? Because of what they believe of our, I don't take comfort in that because I worry about the safety of our police officers out there every day.
What about sanctuary cities?
So, right.
Sanctuary cities, state and cities.
Correct. So we just exacerbated an existing situation. The restrictions with cooperating with other law enforcement agencies. And as a sidebar, I would just tell you that's one of the number one findings of the 9/11 commissions of how did this happen, and it was because of the lack of cooperation among agencies, federal, state, city, and now your hands are tied, right? The proverbial handcuffs on our own law enforcement agencies, right? So now, most recently, what you saw on the news in the last 48 hours, you have youth gangs as young as 14 years old. And my opponent has signed on to and helped pass legislation protecting minors just like this. So you have police officers show up. What am I supposed to do? They're not citizens. They're of a certain age. I'm being told don't even bring them into the courts, right? Because they're going to go right back out, or we can't even administrate justice to them. So I live right by Floyd Bennett Field. I drive by there at a minimum twice a day going to work. And I talked to the EMS. I talked to the NYPD. Because it's federal land, their hands are tied. They're limited to going in there. You have to wait for perhaps one of the very few park police officers that are out there. It's absurd, is what it is.
Ridiculous.
And these laws are putting us all in jeopardy.
Well, particularly ICE. We had the director of the New York City ICE office here, and he was very frustrated because he gets no cooperation whatsoever. And that's a big thing because ICE is a very good position to handle these people, but yet they're not allowed to because there's a law in place that says you can't cooperate with ICE.
Right, and I use the word absurd, but we often use the words very discouraging for a law enforcement officer that can't operate under those conditions. Some of them appear to be at a loss. When I talk to them at these civic meetings and community council meetings, they give you that look where they ask you, what else do you want me to do, right? I arrested the person. And by the time I'm done with the paperwork, they're back out, right? And what we fail to realize, just as the human element to this whole thing, is that if we don't apply proper punishment, they're emboldened. And this is why you see things getting worse and not better.
Tom, in District 23, what would you say is for that district, 23, what was the top three concerns of the residents?
Okay, so it's almost equal to what's happening statewide and nationally. It's public safety, and those three things we talked about: clean slate, qualified immunity. This morning, I went to a local pizzeria that we frequent during the campaign late at night, and while the owner was in the back preparing food, his children, who were off for Columbus Day, were in the front doing a little schoolwork. And as of right now, it's being deemed an emotionally disturbed person, EDP, and smashed the window in front of these kids under the age of 8 years old, screaming obscenities as if he was trying to get into the building. The owner tried to get out as fast as he could. Then the individual took off down the block, but he was so concerned with how rattled the children are, right? So this is going to cost the store owner, we were speaking with him this morning, over $1,000 in repairs that he's not going to be compensated for, and the children. So if anybody knows Broad Channel, they got a beautiful little strip of about a dozen or so mom and pop shops. This is where people used to be able to send you up to the Luigi Ices or the Hooks Pizzeria, ride your bicycle up, or go to the little convenience store to get your mom or your dad, a quart of milk. They're not doing that anymore. They're worried what's happening on this little piece of strip. Yesterday, I was on Beach 116th Street. Again, other than the Chase Bank, you have all individual stores, mom and pop stores. These folks have invested life savings for a job and a source of income. They put money into the storefronts to make it look nice and are required to keep the streets clean, and they do so. And then they have to put up with emotionally disturbed people addicted to drugs, the criminal element. It makes it very hard to operate on these margins. Going back to the pizzeria, $1,000 worth of damage, right? And $22 a pie. It's a lot of pizza.
Yeah, it is.
Before you even open up.
True.
Your opponent, could you tell us what she stands for that is different from what you stand for?
Right. So simply put, she has voted for the no cash bail laws that are in place. She will tout the multiple amendments that have just continued to fail. She would like to blame, somebody like myself who's not even elected, but my ideas would jeopardize all this. But again, as I mentioned, in New York State, the Democratic Party has what they call a supermajority in both the lower house and the upper house. They could change that law tomorrow. There is nothing stopping them, right? Even if every last single Republican voted against that, they'd still be able to do what they can do. So I don't buy I fought the governor on these bills. I fought, hard for my constituents. Then you either have no influence in your own party or you have very little influence. A line she uses against me is that if I'm elected, it's a threat, and she says this in public. If Tom is elected, he will not have a seat at the table. They will not give him a seat at the table. So what I would like to submit to your listeners is that, 30 years in corporate America, I've been in the boardroom. I've submitted reports to boards of directors of Fortune 500 companies. I've met with the New York State Banking Authority, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Office, Financial Regulatory Authority, and everybody else who manages finances. In the military, I've operated at a command post, tactical operational centers, division-level command centers running operations for the entire Afghanistan. When I was there in 2016, I was the lead logistical element that led logistical operations for all of Afghanistan. So whether it's the dinner table, the board table, or in a command post somewhere, I promise you I will have a seat at the table.
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What is your opinion of what's going on with our illustrious mayor?
Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs. So as a young officer, somebody once told me a little saying that seems to be more true now than it was when I was a young lieutenant, and that was admit nothing, deny everything, and make counter allegations. And that doesn't work in the military, right? So regarding the mayor specifically, he has lost public trust and confidence. And in the military, or in my personal profession, you would be removed until your matters and you're being deemed innocent because you're deemed to have lost the trust and confidence of your soldiers, your employees, your clients, and you're no longer a good representative of the military or this corporation. So we do things very differently than in politics, and he needs to get these affairs in order. And the leading indicator is that, right, for any leader in the military specifically, is you can't have that plausible deniability. If everybody under you is stealing and corruption, and I think it's up to 7 major departments now,
And I think it's 9.
9. So, and to me, the most disturbing is in the sheriff's office, right? We legalized marijuana a couple of years ago, and it's a whole other conversation. But, you know, when we did that, you had cartels, you had criminal organizations, transnational organizations, organized crime, the local street people just like, this is just an opportunity like they could never imagine before. And for the sheriff to be accused of, supposed to be going out and shutting down, is going out and stealing product, stealing cash, and let the operation continue so that they can come back again. So I would certainly say that the mayor has lost trust and confidence of the majority of New Yorkers. He is becoming less effective every day. And we need somebody in there who can focus on the real issues of New York City.
But you realize if he steps down, you get that lunatic Jumaane Williams in temporarily.
Right. So, that just tells you that's a sad state of affairs when we don't want to get rid of this person because the next option is even worse. What I would submit to people, and this is true leadership, right? You don't allow that person to continue on, and then when the next person comes in, you deal with that, right? That's leadership. That's facing tough decisions, tough problems, facing the city. But are we supposed to allow that to happen as an administration, as citizens, as law enforcement agencies? I would submit to you not.
Well, that's Adam's problem. All the people that he brought on are cronies of his, right. And they were never really vetted. And he has no managerial experience. He likes to behave like a swagger man, but he really has no leadership qualities. And coming from the police department after serving 40 years, I know what leadership is about. And you have to take the responsibility for your subordinates. If you pick them and they screwed up, the buck stops with you, not them.
Correct.
That's what you said. Basically, what you were saying before.
Yeah. So going back to a second lieutenant, I remember one of my first exams, the definition of leadership. Right. It's the art of influencing people to do things that they would not normally do, or to do the right thing even when they're not being watched. So it is evident that they were not being watched. It is evident that they saw their leader getting away with certain things. So why shouldn't they? And then it becomes systematic corruption, which is what we're seeing. And it starts at the top, and then it eventually it will filter down to the rank and file.
What's your opinion on how the governor is handling this? She has the power to remove him,
right?
But there's a misconception about that. She just can't remove him; just to serve him with charges, and give him it has to give him the opportunity to explain, and then after that she can remove him. But she's waffling on this. And I guess there's a political decision involved here, but she really.
Yeah, but if you remove him, who's going to be the mayor?
That's the problem. You got Jumaane Williams.
That is the problem.
So I was wondering what your opinion on how the governor is handling this.
Right. I think she's doing a poor job at it. Again, going back to basic leadership skills, right? You have to be prepared for situations like this. You have to have somebody in mind to replace an individual. Again, I'm sorry, but 30 years in the military, I learned a few things, and one is a leader is very important, and if they're bad, they can wreak havoc on the soldiers, on morale and welfare and effectiveness. But that's why you have a second in command, an executive officer. That's why you have a lieutenant governor. That's why you have a deputy mayor. And if there's nobody they can find, then shame on you for not being prepared. Because when I was in office, again on the battlefield, I faced those tough situations where you have to remove a seasoned non-commissioned officer for simply losing the trust and confidence from the soldiers, right? Their lives are in jeopardy. Combat effectiveness is in jeopardy, right? You cannot sit by and take too much time. I know who I'm putting in that next spot. I knew who I was going to, and if I didn't, I knew who to call and say, I need a new senior non-commissioned officer. I need a new lieutenant who I want to send home. I sent people home from Afghanistan, and it's not easy, right? These things can be very personable, but it is a matter of life and death. It is a matter of loss in trust and confidence in your organization. And if you as a leader don't do that, everybody around notices that you did not have the courage, you did not have the character to make a tough and difficult decision. She has had more than enough time to find a replacement and make the realization that he has lost the trust of the people.
Yeah, but she's stuck with Jumaane Williams for 80 days.
The way it's structured, right, if the governor removes the mayor, then the public advocate in this situation is Jumaane Williams, would step in automatically. I think it's 60 to 90 days that it will be a special election. Anybody can run. Then after they finish the term, there'd be a general election. Correct?
Right. See, that's the problem.
Right. So you just, that process exists for the very reason you just named. Right. There was a reason that was created years ago when you're a leader, right? I understand. People may not be for Jumaane Williams. Maybe he's a lot worse. And that's what people fear. So let's address that. If he can't do the job either, then we move on to the next step.
That's a good point.
Like why is that process there? It's exactly there for that purpose.
You can remove him too.
Right. Or look, this is America. That's the process we all agreed to that they put in place. So he becomes the next person. Now he's got to run for office, and if he gets elected, he gets elected.
True.
Well, the problem with him is during the 80 days that he has, he probably would introduce all kinds of legislation to the crazy city council, and things will be even worse.
Right. Elections have consequences, and This is certainly one of those consequences. But again, I would submit to you that the process is, and he rightfully holds that position, right? And I certainly don't agree with his policies, but hopefully the citizenry wake up and realize whether it's the anti-police, defund the police. Listen, I want to go back to my election for half a second. I've never seen my opponent work so hard in my life. She's been entitled to this position. Her mother held the position for 28 years. Now she's going on her 8th year, and somehow I don't have a right to run. And it's a tough race I'm in. I'm in a tough race. I took on a tough battle, tough opponent, but people have to have a choice. And I just, again, elections have consequences. And you may not like the individual because they're not of your party, but for the sake of the city, for the sake of the safety of a citizenry, pay attention to who you vote for. It matters.
Well, if there's a special election, you could submit your name to be mayor. There's no party affiliations.
Yeah, I'll take this one election at a time.
I'll get to that question in a moment, though.
And,
but Tom, so you're against or for term limits?
I'm for term limits. So in corporate America, very rarely will you have a senior leadership in the same division for too long, right? Because you want new ideas. You need newer energy, and some people become entitled or make exemptions for themselves, certainly in the military. So when you become a company commander, you have a 2-year term. When you become a battalion commander, you have a 2-year term. When you become a brigade commander, you have a 2-year term. You see the pattern? Right. Because you start to say, you know what, I don't need to take the PT test. I don't need to go to the physical training test. I don't need to go to the range, right? Everybody else has to, or I'll everybody gets to know me. And even good people can corrupt slightly, right? If somebody knows you're going to be there for 20 years, right, you're going to get the money, you're going to get the deals, and they're going to go ahead and support you 100% because you're going to want something in return. And this is one of the challenges I face as an incumbent. I'm the law enforcement family. I'm trying to make an appeal to the rank and file, and it's coming from a law enforcement family. It's very discouraging not to have the support of law enforcement agencies, because I will support them no matter what, right? I'm elected. I hold no grudges. It's confusing. And maybe someday I can figure it out. You know, I have ideas of why it's done, and maybe it's because they know that the Democratic Party has a stronghold on New York City, right? I think we hold 6 of the 61 seats in the city council, 48 of the 146 of the 150 seats in the assembly. And they just want to get rid of more Republicans. One of the most humorous things I hear when I go to like a civic meeting or a community council meeting is when you find somebody on the fringe that says, the Republicans, right? You guys, and I say, ma'am, sir, what Republicans are you exactly talking about? Yeah. So we need a balance. We are out of balance in both the Assembly, the Senate, and they need to know that. When I win this race, it will, mark these words, it will send shockwaves that a Republican won a seat that hasn't been held by a Republican in 68 years. Listen, I appeal to Democrats. They voted for me last time. And, we on election night, just to remind your listeners, we were up my first time running against my opponent. And we were up 286 votes 54 days later on January 3rd. I got dragged through the court system for voter suppression, which is absurd. Early voting, mail-in voting, election day, and I got sued for trying to stop the elections, voter suppression. And then we lost ultimately by 15 votes.
How many?
15, 1-5.
Wow.
Right. So it went through the court system, and it was very discouraging to appear in court multiple times and, have a judge just kind of give you that look. You poor bastard, no matter what you say or do is not going to matter to you. So I've gotten to be a pretty good read of faces and eyes and
that's Cap.
What you were talking about before in the military, that's the rotation system, right?
Yeah.
In fact, there's the general staff. If you're a good boy, you go up to the general staff for a couple of years, and then you go back with the promotion. Isn't that the way it works?
Correct. So, like, my whole career, I've, and it probably hurt me later on, but I was always involved in operations. I was an executive officer and a commander. Then I became operations, an executive officer, and a commander. And when I got to the division level, I became a deputy commander of the sustainment command. And it's a good thing, but unfortunate. I got picked up for early promotion, selected early, they call it, twice. So I lost a year in there to go do good staff work. But I did work on staff work for short periods of time. But you never want to go like the Pentagon, right? I've been asked to go to the Pentagon for several times, and I was like, please don't.
Sounds like going to police headquarters, the Puzzle Palace.
Right. The Puzzle Palace, the Emerald Palace.
Well, you know, sometime when I was in the department, I had suggested that when I made captain, I had suggested that the department adopt in some form the military version of rotation. And, you know, people, like, let's say you had a precinct command for 2 years and things went well, you go up to headquarters in the staff position, and then usually if you did good, you go back with the promotion. I believe in that system. I think it's a good system.
Correct. It's a very good system.
And I would hope that if you get in, somehow you could talk about that for the agencies around the state.
You know, there's books written on this, and one of them is actually called The Challenge of Command. And it's just an outstanding book, whether you're a precinct commander.
Company commander?
Uh-huh.
A company commander?
Oh, yeah. Company. Yeah, it was actually written for like that company level command, but it applies to.
Yeah, well, a company is equivalent to a precinct.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So, you know, for your listeners out there, The Challenge of Command, I highly encourage it to do a book promotion.
Well, I think with the knowledge you have, you would be very good at this in the state because you have that background.
So, you know, we just ran an ad in the newspapers so all your boxing fans would look and see the tail of the tape, right? They have two boxers side by side, and they say reach, age, power punch. Is it the jab? Is it the right hook? So I did one of those parodies as an ad, and we did, right, civilian experience. So I have 30 years in corporate America. We did a military experience. I have 30 years with combat tours and received the Legion of Merit, the Soldier's Medal, 2 Bronze Stars, education. I have a bachelor's in science. I have an MBA, master's in business administration with a concentration in finance. And I have a master's level degree in military strategic studies from a very prestigious university called the United States Army War College. Now, right, so that's a contrast is Tom Sullivan. Does he have the qualifications? Does he have the educational background? Does he have the real world experience to lead us, right? So there's a stark contrast. And that's all I ask your listeners to do when you go to the ballot box. Experience matters. Character matters. And that's the tail of the tape, right? How do I measure up against my opponent? And just go out, educate yourselves on the values and the character of your opponents, Republican and Democrat, right? There's no law. I get this question sometimes. I'm a registered Democrat. Can I vote for a Republican? I'm a Republican. Can I vote for a Democrat? Right? So in a general election, you can vote for whomever you wish. Right. And when I knock on doors, I say, sorry, sir, sorry, ma'am, for disturbing you. I'm Tom Sullivan, running for the state assembly, and I hand them my literature and say, I appreciate your consideration.
Well, everything you just said makes you the perfect candidate. I would vote for you if I was in your district, but I'm not. Sorry.
Tom, growing up, were you a Democrat, registered Democrat, or were you always a Republican?
No, I was always a Republican. I supported Republican initiatives. I would say, you know, my parents never talked politics, but they taught me life lessons, and I learned that those more align with the Republican right. Patriotism. We honored our veterans every Memorial Day, every Veterans Day. If we were on the beach, you got off the beach and you went up and you sat there in your bathing suit or put a T-shirt on and you watched the flag get raised and then lowered to half-mast and then again at noon raised to full mast. And you ran food plates down to your veterans in need. I was surrounded by World War II veterans, Patrick McGalley in the Battle of the Bulge, Mr. Fulham, D-Day +2, Mr. Schroeder fought on the Sicilian Peninsula. These as a young kid, I just was taught that they're good people and deserve our respect. As I became a student and started studying history or being interested in the military service. I went to a boarding military high school. So at 14 years old, we were taught patriotism and leadership. And my father came home one day. I came home one day. My father was sitting at the table. I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was from the selective service, right, that I would now be eligible for service. And I was excited. And I opened it up right away, and I filled it out, and I put it in the return address. And he was sitting there with a, it was kind of like laughing, but a proud laugh. Right. And he's like, how could you at 18 years old be so excited about getting your notice to serve your country? And I think back, if he had asked me that question back then, I would have said it's you did that. Yeah. Because that's what he did. My oldest brother went to the military academy at West Point, served 8 years in the Army, and then did 26 years in the Secret Service. I have another brother that went to the United States Military Academy at West Point, number 5, and he did 30 years of active duty service. Wow. And the both of us served in Iraq together, and not in the same organizations, but we were there at the same time, and our paths had crossed multiple times. And I can't imagine the sense of pride, the sense of worry that their children were in war zones. And I'm starting to learn a little bit myself here, because I had the honor, so proud, back in May, just a few months ago, to pin lieutenant bars on my son, who is currently serving down in Alabama. He's training to be an Apache helicopter pilot. Wow. And, when I left the Army, there was, relatively peace in the Middle East as far as what had been happening for many years. There was not war in Europe, which there's war in Europe now. And I don't know if you saw the news this morning with the multiple explosions at the North Korean, South Korean border. So there's still more to come out as to what was those explosions about. But in this moment of what I think in this gap of leadership in our government at the highest levels, is an opportunity for, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, right? So yeah, it's. I believe I have the education and the experience and the real world and the knowledge to certainly serve in our New York State Assembly, and I look forward to addressing the tough issues, right? And one of those tough issues is the 2,280-something New Yorkers that died of fentanyl last year. This is a very big, complex issue. And through my studies and through my experience, I know that we've gone from 2 cartels in Mexico to 5 cartels. It is a $1 trillion business, $1 trillion business. That money buys corruption. That money buys violence on a scale like you've never seen before. And if you think we have a problem at the southern border now, although the Mexican government is dealing with massive amounts of corruption, if it fails, it will be uncontainable.
Tom, earlier in the interview,
way above the assembly race,
the captain mentioned you'd be a great candidate for mayor. So someday, if you were sworn in as mayor, what would be the first order of business that you would attend to?
If I was sworn in as mayor of New York City?
What would be if you were sworn in tomorrow as mayor of New York City, what would be your first order of business?
So to restore honor, integrity, and character to the office, respect for it, and that would be a hard-fought battle. Bring trust and confidence back in your government. that you will serve your constituents, protect their safety, provide good education, make sure everybody has some access to basic health care, housing, homeless in itself, emotionally disturbed people like we spoke about before. These laws that have been passed and these policies, look, I'm not for mass incarceration. I'm not for scooping up every individual on the street and locking them up somewhere upstate. That's not the case. But we are doing them a great disservice when somebody cannot regulate their medication, or you leave them on the street to the exposure of the heat, or you leave them on the exposure to the cold. That is not compassion, okay? Taking them off the street, even if it's against their will, they might not understand what's right or wrong. I find it very hard to believe that somebody who smashed his arm through the window with young children of a pizzeria restaurant 48 hours ago is not in need of help. So we're going to do him a service by let him stay on the street, let them defecate and urinate, let them go back to Beach 116th Street and have a store owner, right? You had asked me before some of the differences. I went to a civic meeting the other day, and my opponent just blew up big corporate America, Walgreens, right? It is a corporation, but these are real people that work there from the neighborhood. They provide a good service, a cheaper quality product than maybe just an individual pharmacy, right? This is where people go for flu shots, COVID shots, and all their medical care, right? But they demonize the place, right? Do you know what her idea was to Walgreens? I want to force them to put a panic alarm in. A panic alarm. Is that why we sent you to Albany, to force Walgreens to put a panic alarm in? So you put a red button there. Does that button ring at the precinct? Ding-a, 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 ding-a. And the police respond? I thought that was 911, right? So you want to blame corporate America, who mom and pop work in there, students work in there, but they continue to get exposed to danger, and everything from stealing 14-year-olds from stealing $5 bags of potato chips. Oh, we don't want to arrest somebody for the $5. No, we created that environment. Your policies created that environment that tolerates that. And you put your employees at health. And now we have policies. These policies for employees, by the way, whether it's Target, Walgreens, existed for a long time to protect the employee. Please don't engage with the, for your safety. But if you have a good employee who did not want to see that happen, and they go out there and they say, put the bag of chips down, or put the couple of cases of beer down, that caused somebody to go into a rampage, throwing bottles of beer all over the place, hundreds of dollars worth of damage, and striking fear into all these people, we created that environment. Those policies created that environment. It's intolerable, should not be accepted, and needs to be addressed before it gets any worse.
It's called blaming the victim.
Well, yeah, victim blaming, victim shaming.
The time is up.
Captain?
Well, I think this has been a great interview, and I sincerely, Kevin and I, and everybody in our circle, hope that you win, and we will do our best to support you. And I think you would make a great representative at the state level, and if not, you'd be a good mayor. And Kevin and I will be.
You guys really want me to run for mayor?
Kevin and I will be special assistants.
Exactly. So, obviously, Cop Talk, you have Cop Talk's endorsement, Tom Sullivan, for the 23rd District.
Oh,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
You have Cop Talk's endorsement. So anyone out there, any of our listeners who live in and can vote in the 23rd District for the State Assembly, New York State Assembly, Tom Sullivan's our man. Tom, thank you again for being here. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for giving me a voice. And you asked me a question at the beginning of this session, why am I running? I want to make sure the people have a choice.
Well, they have a good choice.
Tom, how could our listeners get in touch with you in regards to donating or even participating, being a volunteer the last 3 weeks of this?
Yeah, you know, the best way, at broad strokes for your audience is sullivanforstateassembly.com. And, there is an opportunity to donate. We're asking for very small contributions. There is an opportunity to volunteer, and we monitor that frequently, hourly. And we could certainly use your help as we, in just a few, less than 2 weeks, we're going to start early voting on August 26th. But for now, it's knocking on doors, and if you're always welcome to join us for
You said August 20.
October 26th. Yeah, October 26th. Right.
Well, thank you again, Tom Sullivan, as our guest. Thank you, Captain. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to Cop Talk. You could also follow us on X, which is at WABC Cop Talk. That's at WABC Cop Talk. Until next time, God bless you. God bless law enforcement throughout the world. And God bless America. Thank you.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II, one that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.